The Mongol invasions of the Khwarezmian Empire in 1219 can be best understood as a decisive moment for Genghis Khan and his rapidly expanding empire. It was the Great Khan's first military foray into the realms of Islam, having just defeated the Karakutai. The fringes of his domain now bordered that of the Khwarezmian Shah Muhammad, whose newly conquered eastern territories were threatened by the prospect of Mongol annexation. While it certainly did not appear this way beforehand, this conquest would have wide-ranging implications on the future of Genghis Khan's empire. Not only would it reshape the map of Central Asia and set the stage for future conquests, but it also sowed the seeds of discontent amongst Genghis' sons, impacting the line of his Khanate succession. In addition to all of this, the Mongol invasion of Khwarezmia remains one of the bloodiest campaigns ever to be carried out, as Genghis and his armies brought total and brutal devastation to the Muslim world. This video will summarize the significant events of the conflict and analyze the impact they had on the legacy and future of Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire. Before the hostilities between the Mongols and the Khwarezmians erupted, Genghis Khan sent a caravan to the Khwarezmian city of Otrar. From what sources gather, Genghis was not interested in starting a war with the Shah, but rather in extending diplomacy to him, looking to acquire a trade partner and quite possibly an ally in the Islamic world. Genghis was busy fighting a successful war against the Jin in North China at this time and likely would not have been looking to be involved in other conflicts. These fruitful diplomatic sentiments were not long-lived, and in 1218 the governor of Otrar had Genghis' caravan put in chains under the suspicion of a conspiracy against the Shah. Upon hearing this, Genghis sent a party of 3 ambassadors, this time to the Shah directly, ordering the release of the imprisoned caravan and requesting that Otrar's governor be handed over for retribution. The Shah responded to these terms by executing the ambassadors. The caravan party at Otrar was executed as well. These acts were said to have greatly enraged the Great Khan, ultimately prompting him to launch an invasion of the Shah's empire. Bloodshed that would soon follow was on the Shah's hands. The execution of Genghis' diplomatic envoys was an affront to the sacred Mongol custom of guest right and a direct insult to the Khan's authority. The Great Khan began making careful military preparations to retaliate to the Shah's insolence, gathering information pertinent to the empire's martial and economic ability to resist invasion. In addition to gathering intelligence from his spies along the Silk Road, he levied troops from all corners of his vast empire, including Chinese engineers that could assist in the construction of various siege works. Finally, using his intel, Genghis formulated a plan of attack. The Great Khan's strategy was to divide and conquer the Shah's empire by dispersing his armies and assaulting the city centers with rapid movement and indirect assault. With his force assembled, Genghis divided his armies and embarked for Khwarezmia. A sizable force led by Jochi, the Khan's eldest son, and Jebe, an elite general, was to cross the Tian Shan Mountains and ravage the fertile lands of Khwarezmia's Fergana Valley. This assault caught the Shah off guard, as the Tian Shan Mountains were considered too treacherous for any army to traverse. Believing that this was the main Mongol host, the Shah ordered his elite cavalry to relieve the valley. Meanwhile, another Mongol army led by Chagatai and Ogadai descended from the north and began sieging the border city of Otrar. The city was sieged for 5 months before a traitor opened the gates, leading to the entire population being massacred savagely, including the governor responsible for imprisoning Genghis' caravan a year prior. The fall of Otrar had been the result of Genghis' careful preparation. The speed of his armies allowed the Mongols to surprise the Shah and seize the initiative. By the same token, his use of dispersion and division had successfully fooled the Khwarezmian defenders into committing their forces prematurely, exposing the country's inland regions and opening the door for the devastation that would soon arrive with Genghis and his remaining armies. The Mongol armies, spread out across several fronts, were now beginning their inland push towards the empire's heartland. Fearing for his empire, the Shah assembled his armies and positioned them along the country's natural barriers, believing that he faced the entire Mongol force. Unbeknownst to the Shah, an army led by Genghis Khan and his youngest son Tolui appeared from the north. By trekking through the ever-treacherous Kizilkum Desert, marching from one oasis to the next, the Great Khan had led his army to the gates of Bukhara completely undetected. Without the means to weather a siege, the city's defending garrisons sallied out to meet Genghis in open combat where they were utterly annihilated. After 12 long days of futile resistance, Bukhara was surrendered to Genghis, who once again had this population within the city put to the sword. The Great Khan then marched his armies to the Khwarezmian capital of Samarkand. As the Mongols were assaulting the city, Ogadai and Chagatai arrived from Otrar and joined the siege. Using enslaved prisoners of war as meat shields, the Mongol army sent several waves of attack towards the city. Tired and demoralized, the defending garrison launched a counterattack after Genghis had his armies feign retreat. With this, the Great Khan successfully lured the city's defenders outside the fortifications of Samarkand and slaughtered them in open battle. Eventually, the remaining garrison surrendered and opened the gates. Genghis had the city's population herded outside the walls and butchered, save for the artisans and able-bodied recruits. The Shah and his advisors, recognizing the destruction of their empire as well as the futility of their resistance, fled from Khwarezmia altogether. Following the devastation of Bukhara and Samarkand, the subjugation of the Khwarezmian Empire was nearly complete. All that was left for Genghis and his sons to do was to take the remaining strongholds within the region and capture the Shah so that he could be punished. Genghis tasked his generals Jebe and Subutai to pursue the Shah in his flight westward, a mission that would ultimately set future forays into the kingdoms of Europe into motion. Meanwhile, Genghis and his armies marched to Urgench, the last major city not under Mongol control. The Mongols were able to successfully capture the city despite some difficulties, yet Urgench is not notable for its siege but rather the dispute that followed. Urgench had been promised to Jochi by his father before the siege of the city had commenced. Once subdued, Jochi decided to enter negotiations with the defending garrison as opposed to looting the city and butchering the inhabitants for their resistance. It is understood that Jochi wanted to save the city from its destruction, but by doing this he angered his brother Chagatai, who openly mocked Jochi for such weak and unorthodox methods, telling their father Genghis. Upon learning of Jochi's actions, Genghis removed him from command in favor of Ogadai. The removal of Jochi from command in the sack of a city he considered promised to him enraged him and estranged him from his father and brothers. Ogadai had the city massacred and sacked, delivering the invasion its bloody conclusion. By 1221 AD, the Khwarezmian Empire belonged to Genghis Khan and the Mongols, officially extending the sphere of Mongol sovereignty to Central Asia. The Muslim world had seldom seen such indiscriminate bloodshed before Genghis Khan's invasion of Khwarezmia. When the invasion had reached its end, millions of lives had been lost, with most major cities left in ruins. Shah Muhammad died in exile, whilst his son continued to resist the Mongols, fleeing from one kingdom to the next in the years that followed. Leaving several garrisons to occupy the region, Genghis Khan withdrew back to Mongolia victorious and wealthy. His annexation of Khwarezmia remains a masterclass in maneuver warfare, bringing the entire region to its knees in just 2 years of conquest. On the surface, the Mongol invasion of Khwarezmia appears no different than many other Mongol conquests. The truth is that the implications of this war would have several effects on the future of the empire. Khwarezmia's devastation was a stepping stone towards future wars of expansion in Central Asia and Europe. In addition to this, the dilemma of the Khan's succession was exacerbated by Jochi's actions at Urgench, complicating the relationship between the Khan's heirs and sowing the seeds of instability and division that would eventually come to define the next several centuries of Mongol history. With all this being considered, it becomes evident that the Mongol invasion of Khwarezmia can be best understood as a turning point, not just for the line of Genghis Khan, but for world history as a whole.